Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Matchup Report here for another NBA edition. Lots to talk about as always. But Jay, how you doing, man?
I am good, and I'm ready to talk about these games because it was a good week to be an OKC fan.
Yeah, y'all are on a nice little win streak right now. Not even a little. You guys are on a nice win streak right now. It's like you and the Hawks right now running the league apparently. But yeah, we'll be talking about OKC a bunch, ready for that, and we will be talking the Sixers a bit. But it's fine. I mean, they're doing okay. I,
What's okay? Like what do you consider okay for the Sixers at this point?
well, okay. Yeah, it's fine. Let's get right to it. So, because for me with
What a
the
way to start it off.
uh,
Already talking about Sixers.
well, yeah, because and part of it too is like I'm trying not to be too negative about it. Like I have been like I want to say like too reactionary, but just like a lot of it has finally just been like breaking me, and it's gotten to the point with the Sixers where like they're winning. They've been winning a little bit more lately, even with the injuries, but they also haven't been playing like the best competition. So part of me is like excited to see some of the young guys. Like we talked about VJ Edgecombe and how this was an opportunity for him, and I think he has done a really good job. I think it's also done a good job of showing him like what he needs to work on. And being more like, okay, I can be a better initiator and I can be better with my handles, like showing him like what he needs to work on better for like a lead role. But I think he has still done in that lead role, and it's nice to see like Dominic Barlow have some nice moments against like Brooklyn, and then some other younger guys like Beauchamp, who like it's funny that we talked about him his rookie year. I think it was with the Bucks, and we were like, okay, like this guy, like yeah, he's showing some stuff, but then he just kind of like disappeared. So it is kind of cool to see like other guys get opportunities in moments like this because they do talk about that with the NBA a lot. Like a lot of guys just need that opportunity, and you never know. At the same time, I am very much still missing like Maxi Embiid and Paul George. So it's like, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's also cool to see Quentin Grimes be back, kind of back in the role he was a year ago, where he's like, okay, I'm the guy. I'm just gonna go out there and score. And then now he's been out there averaging like 21 plus points a game since all these injuries, since Maxi's been out. So yeah, there's been some like cool moments with it, and it is nice that they're able to win. But the Sixers are also like in the playing tournament pretty firmly. Well, I'm not gonna say firmly, but they're right currently they're in the playing tournament. But like I think it's like six through let me see, what was it 6 through 9 are basically like all within like a game and a half of each other in the East right now. So it's a bit crazy there. Yeah. So actually it's five. So the Sixers are a game and a half behind the Raptors, who are a fifth seed right now, and the Sixers are the eighth seed. So or something like that. Do I have that right?
I
Is this
think you're
updated?
I think you're in the acceptance phase now. Like there's the anger, um, like the grief, like 5 stages of grief, like, and I'm really excited to see that you're now in the acceptance phase. That the Sixers just this is inevitability, and I did think that it wouldn't take so long for you to get here, but hey, here we are.
Well, it depends on what time of the day you're talking to me because I feel like I go through all the stages every single day with the Sixers. So depends on like when I started, and like that's when you'll get me. But like right now, we're firmly in the acceptance and just patience stage right now.
I felt like I just seen a lot of anger, and I was like, oh, like I was waiting for you to turn the corner, and it's I'm finally glad to see it happening, even if it took weeks.
I appreciate you being patient for me, man, and like having faith in me to come back around.
You Some would say I maybe even trusted the process.
Okay, all right. You know what? Let's talk about OKC. Let's move on. So yeah, let me hear about you, man. Let's get to reviewing some of our matchups, some of these specific games. So I know you wanted to talk about one first, so let's get to it.
All right, so of course, this game was Thursday. Thursday, OKC played Boston with a lot of history on the line. Obviously, two teams who came into this both respectively the top three of their conference. Boston isn't number one because of Detroit, and OKC is number one. But either way, both teams came in, and we were looking at this as one a potential finals matchup. But two, just like I think, just two really good teams that were both in a really good rhythm. Boston was getting Jason Tatum back. Jalen Brown's been like an MVP, and then you talk about everything OKC's been going through, trying to get like Isaiah Hartenstein back into the fold, AJ Mitchell back into the fold, Chet Holmgren playing consistently. There were a lot of moving pieces for both teams where it's like things were finally coming together at the right time to have a really competitive matchup. And then you add on top of that, Shea came into this game needing just one more 20-point game to break Wilt Chamberlain's 20-point consecutive game record. And he was able to get that. He finished with 35 points and really led OKC to a win, 104-102, and it was a really close game. Obviously, I think like when you look at a game like this, I think Shea clearly is like, like he clearly led OKC. With that being said, though, I think everyone on this OKC team played their role. It wasn't a situation where it's like it was just a Shea and Chet game. Like Chet had his numbers, AJ Mitchell had his numbers as well. But I think it was very much an equal opportunity offense, and I think like I, as a Temple, like media member, we hear that a lot from the Temple teams. And I've yet to see it play at a full, capacity here at Temple, but it's cool to see it like, like with OKC and see, guys like Aaron Wiggins and Jared McCain now being added into the fold. Aaron Wiggins already here, but Jared McCain now being added into the fold of this, where he's a part of this offense where it's like anybody can go score, and then on the defensive end, everyone can get a stop as well. Like obviously you have your guys like Casey Wallace and Lou Dort, but then like I think it's very easy to look at those two players and say yes, those are your like heavy like on ball defenders who can like shut things down. But I think everyone, and even including Shea, can play defense to a level that I think is very underrated, and it's what makes OKC such a great team is that everyone can score offensively, but everyone can play their role defensively, so they are a liability.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was another. We talk about your team all the time, OKC, as being a team, and with Boston as well too, in a sense. But when they're fully healthy, but with OKC, it's like we're talking about their depth and how important that is for the team, and how it's like a main driving force for them. A lot of times, of how they're able to have success, like last year when they won the championship. And then this was a game where it was like you're right, everyone was kind of playing their role, but they also really needed Shea to like have the kind of game that he did because a lot of people's shots just were not going in. It was a lot of like very inefficient shots from people like Caruso. I think he was 3 of 11, and it was just like when you like on the bench, nobody was able to get the double digits, and it was a game where it's like, all right, Shay, like we know like the record is there, but at the same time, like we need to win this game, and he just took over from like every aspect too. Like it wasn't just offense, it was defense. And when you have a guy like that, an MVP who can lead your team on both ends of the floor, who can you can just rely on, where it's like we're here when you need us, but there are some games where we just need you to be the MVP, and he was that in a game like this, and it was a close game too because Boston, as you said, like they're a very good team. We could both potentially, I think we both agree, like this is a potential finals matchup with how Boston has been playing, and we wouldn't be surprised if we saw these teams playing each other in the middle of the summer. So great game from Shea, and it was a huge moment for him, obviously breaking the record. Like congratulations to him. I'm sure you were extremely happy. You were out that night, right? Were you out that night just to watch this game and celebrate, or like?
Yeah, no, I was not, unfortunately. Yeah, I was literally hanging out with my friend and actually former GM of the station, Declan. And I like literally, it's funny because literally, like he was like, oh, like we were trying to plan a double date, and he was like, oh, like when are you free? And he was like, how about Thursday? And I was like, well, OKC does play Boston, and like they laughed because that was my first reaction that I knew the OKC schedule, and I was like, I am so serious, like that could be the Shea like game breaker. And he was like, all right, like I understand if you want to put it on, and I did. I literally put it on. And so my treat was Dairy Queen, and Shea breaking the record.
Sounds
So
good to me.
that I literally couldn't have asked for anything better. As
What's
an OKC.
what's your Dairy Queen order? Like, what do you have like a
The
go to or?
the chocolate dip strawberry is like easily my go-to every time. Every time I go back and I look at the menu every time just to like see if there's anything different I like. But the chocolate dip strawberry, it's kind of misleading because it's more strawberry with chocolate bits in it.
Mm.
But I really love that one.
I haven't been to Dairy Queen forever. I think the last time I was when I lived at the beach. But if there's anything peanut butter chocolate or Reese's, I'm in. Like
See,
that's
I don't like peanut butter. Like
wow,
that's my thing. I'm not a peanut butter person.
man, I love peanut butter. Like Reese's to me are like top three candy out there, like any form.
That's tough. Um, yeah, that is tough. Like obviously I don't like peanut butter, so I don't like Reese's. But
Mm.
like I literally grew up like I went to boarding school in Mill and Hershey, so like we get like we go to Hershey Park all the time, and like there's obviously like you find out how much is tied to like a chocolate company. Like Twizzlers is a part of it, Jolly Rancher, but I like top three candy. Yeah,
Mm.
I can understand Reese's there. I think for me, I think an underrated one that I like not underrated, but like one that I think needs more love is Sour Patch Watermelon. Like I love Sour Patch Watermelon.
You know what? I'm with you on that one. I do. And I'm a big like sour gummy and just like a gummy kind of guy. Like sour straws to me are my favorite candy of all time, like, easily since I was a kid. But yeah, not to go on to it. But hey, small world by the way, because my high school we did a senior trip to Hershey,
Cool.
um, to there. So yeah, weird that like Small world, man. Cool. But great chocolate though. Great
Yeah,
and fun
my
rides.
last thing on that is that like I because like we were there and we had like we were students, we literally got to go to Hershey Park like every weekend. So like it's funny, like I'll joke around, like I literally know the park like the back of my head because it's like we they'd be like, oh, like we're gonna pick you up at 10 o'clock. They drop us off at 8, and we literally just run around the park for 2 hours. So we knew like every way to get back, the fastest way to like our vans to be not be late. But yeah, that's my diatribe.
All right, well, yeah, back to the game. But yeah, and then like I said, his defense as well. What do you have? Was it 3 steals, 2 blocks, or two? Which either way, he had like 5 stocks. So it was like a great game for Shea all around. Dude, he's been having some crazy blocks lately, like at the rim too. Like it's really cool to see like your star player like sell out like that.
I know it was a couple weeks ago, but the block on Wimby, I was like that's what I'm talking about. Like seeing him get up there, and like I think it says something. Like you mentioned the star player aspect of it, and I think it's crazy that like not to say it's crazy that we see a star player do that, but I think a lot of the star players now, especially star player guards. I don't really think of them being, strong on the defensive end. Like, no disrespect, but Tyrese Maxey, yes, he's great. Like, at intercepting passing lanes and being an on-ball defender. But when it comes to like, I think being aggressive as a shot blocker, like not consistently.
No, I
He
know,
has
I know, I know.
moments, but like I look at that and I'm like, all right, like when you think of like the best like superstars, right? Like Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Shea, Cade, I think Shea is the best on-ball defender from a superstar standpoint. That is a guard. I know that's like I'm lowering down and like moving the goalposts with this thing to be like kind of specific.
I would
But
say like he's one of the more consistent ones at least because it's like I think of like when Cade and Anthony Edwards like are locked in on that side of the ball, like they can be like locked down kind of guys. But I think it's the same with Shea. But like because it really isn't. But he also doesn't have to every game, and like OKC doesn't really ask him to be that guy all the time. Like it's not like he's always like the primary guy. Um, Whereas sometimes Cade does have to be depending on who they're playing. But yeah,
I think you're right about the consistency part, and I think that's what separates it in my mind. Is and we always talk about consistency with him, but I think something that we don't see on both sides of the ball from most superstars. It's like, all right, yes, you can provide offensively, playmaking wise, and whatever have you, but what about the defensive end? How can you work to get that aspect? And I think Shea is capable, and we've seen him, be consistent on both ends of the ball, which is why he's the MVP. And I think he'll once again repeat his MVP this year.
I have a feeling so too, especially breaking the record like that. Like that is like a staple moment for you in the season, and it could be cool to see him get it back to back. I think his biggest competition is obviously Jokic, but if Shea
Yeah.
continues on this trend for like the final month of the season, I don't. I feel like I will be leaning more towards him this year, as most people probably will. Real quick on the Boston side, Jalen Brown had his typical game where it's like I feel like he just rolls out of bed and gets 30 for a lot of these games. Especially in this game, there was no Derek White or Tatum, which was a suck because like I really did. I was hoping we talked about the show. I was like, all right, I do want to see Tatum in this game. Like, I want to see how. And then he was like, injury management. I was like, damn it. So like that happened to me like on a few games this week where I was like, oh, I really want to see these players play each other. And then it was like the day of, I would open up the injury reports. It was like, it was never like anyone was injured. It's like every player I wanted to watch was like injury management. I was like, all right, well, okay, we're just resting players I want to watch, which, that's NBA sometimes, but it is what it is. But yeah, Jalen Brown he had a pretty good game as usual. He got to the line a lot, was playing aggressive. He made some crazy contested shots. There was one, I forget who he made it on, but it was like at the elbow. He tried to put like a few jab steps on him, like kind of like Carmelo. And then he just got to the point where he just looked at the rim. He's like, all right, screw it. And he just faded and made a midi. I was like, this has been Jalen Brown's entire season. Like his efficiency this year inside the arc has been nuts. Like we already know he can be a good shooter in general, but the contested and the tough shots he's been making from the mid range have been amazing to watch. And then you get help from Pritchard and guys like that, but it was still a close game. I mean, we know Boston. It doesn't matter who's on the court; they're all going to fight, whether your name's Shireman or Tatum. Like they're going to be out there fighting till the end. So, it was a very entertaining game, and I really I don't know, like I say, I 100% don't hope I see both of these teams in the finals because I would die if I saw Boston in there again already. But yeah, it was just a really fun matchup between two high powered teams.
Yeah. My last thing to add about this is you mentioned Peyton Pritchard hitting some tough shots, and there was literally one. I'm gonna have to share it. Of Casey Wallace made this face after Peyton Pritchard just like hit it, like had amazing defense on him, like fully like it was just great defense, better offense, and not even better offense, just a really good like difficult shot. And Casey Wallace made this face, like looking at Peyton Pritchard, looking at this, making this face, looking at Peyton Pritchard. And I was like, I was like, this, I have to include this because I was like, there's like, a shot is good when, the defender just looks at you like, I did everything I could. I thought it was really funny.
Hey, great defense, better offense. Sometimes it just goes in. Like there's not much you can do. But yeah, a really really fun game, and it's always fun watching like two teams like this play each other because you'll see OKC where it's like both these teams are very physical. That's why I always love matchups like this in the first place. But like both teams can play physical, but they're gonna take their time with it. They're gonna play hard defense. They're gonna try to create those turnovers and get like the quick points. But then when they get to their half court sets, it's how they're getting everybody open. Like both teams have a lot of ball movement. I think Boston's better with their ball movement at times, mainly because Missoula is just like they are hunting those threes, and I think they only shot like 31% from three this game, which if Boston's around there, like that kind of hurts them. But like just watch.
25% actually from in this game. So,
Oof.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of those things too, where it's like sometimes with Boston, it's like they are committed to how they play with the ball movement and getting those open threes for each other with like the high screens off of the wings or everything like that. But when OKC can play physical and fight through those screens, it's going to make those shots harder, which is I think something that we saw in this game. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about my first game that I watched. That was the Suns and the Raptors, which ended up being, I think, maybe my favorite game I did watch, which I wasn't expecting. Like, I knew it would be a fun game just because the two teams are, like, pretty chaotic in their own way. But this game was, first of all, I got to say it every time. Let me just get this out of the way. I love watching Devin Booker. Man, like, it's like I've said a lot of times, just if you know me and like if you talk to me about basketball long enough, I have a certain affinity for like the mid-range jumper and how I think the best players in the NBA. If you look at anybody's numbers across the board, I did a whole project on this last year actually in a class that you're taking now, where I stood in front of the class and I did a whole like 2 minute presentation like real quick on like just the mid-range jumper in the NBA and how important it is for superstars to learn how to do that because you become a whole three level scorer. Anyways, anytime I watch a player like Devin Booker and him operate near the elbow and do stuff like that, kind of like how Chris Paul would too, even when they played with each other, I love that stuff, man. And it's like every time he rises up, it just looks so smooth and it's good. And he was very good in this game. But Jalen Green was popping off in this game too, very early too, like very early. They were the Suns in this game because the Raptors defense is very good, especially when they're like all working together. And in this game, man, the Suns were just like Jalen. They were driving and kicking out. A lot of times it was Jalen Green who would be the beneficiary of that, and Devin Booker was doing a good job of that too, some baseline drives and whatnot, and then just kicking it out to an open Jalen Green at the wing or in the corner, and he was knocking them down very early. He was kind of like most of their early offense, and then although he had a pretty fun moment at the end of the game, which we'll get to, but that was partly because of Scotty Barnes, who was amazing this game, like on both ends of the floor. I thought there was going to be like an actual, like him and Grayson Allen and RJ Barrett and a lot of these guys were getting to it a bit this game, which is always fun, like between two teams like this. But Scotty Barnes, his physicalness on both offense and defense, where it's like on offense, it almost looks like sometimes like he was like pushing guys off, but he's just like if you put like a Grayson Allen on him, it's like what are they supposed to do against a Scotty Barnes who is just going to lower that shoulder on you basically in the paint, and he's just going to get to the basket one way or the other. And if he's getting the calls, there's not much you can do about it. But his playmaking stood out in this one as well, where it's like he is going to be physical and going downhill, but if it's not there, like he finds a way to pivot and find the guys around him to set up plays for them. And it's not just pass and like go out to the wing; it's pass, set that screen for them, so that then they can have the drive going down or seal down for them. So watching Scotty do everything at both ends of the floor is just it's awesome, man. And then yeah, the moment he had at the end of the game was really clutch. It became like a very close game, like back and forth. And the Suns were going to have a moment. I think it was to tie it up or take the lead and Jalen Green went for a back scratcher two-handed dunk, and Scotty Barnes blocked him like on the way. And it was funny because one of the first things I saw about it was like someone complaining in 2K, being like, "These fucking animations, like it's just like 2K, this is bullshit." But because it did look like it was an insane block, man. Like it really was one of those like you don't see that often. So and he's been doing that all year. I don't think he's got enough credit for his defense. Like he should be in the defensive player of the year, at least the conversation. I'm not gonna say he should win it, but like he should be in that conversation. And then another one that was really impressive in this game, the Suns rookie Fleming. He just kind of started getting starting minutes with him, like I want to say last month. Dude, he was awesome in this game, like all over, and he was knocking down threes for them consistently. He's flying all over the place for them on offense. Like he was like, it's one of those things where I don't know if it's you play soccer a lot. You remember the times where it's like if you're just around, and this is like football. This is most sports, right? But
Yeah.
it's like if you're around the ball, good things are just gonna happen. And that was happening a lot for him in this game, where it's like, oh, there was a loose ball, or like there's something quickly happening in transition. And it's like every time I looked up, it was Fleming was either the one gathering it or being the beneficiary of like the quick, easy points on the other side. So his activity everywhere has been very impressive, and that's just another young guy that the Suns seem to have going forward, which they have been really kind of like been flying under the radar with the development that they've had this year with some of their guys. I mean, they're still definitely missing Dylan Brooks. I think he could have been a factor in this game, but like it is cool to see that like when the guys like that are out, they have enough depth where someone could step in for them. And then yeah, just one of the other ones I had, one of my notes was just like I was watching this game and I was like, all right, Bi is just he's just a bucket getter, man. Like there were so many shots in this where like he would start like working on somebody and like whether it be the 3 point line or near the elbow, and he'd be doing his thing, getting in his bag, and I was like, he's not gonna take the shot, right? Like there's no way he's about to take this shot. And then he would just rise up with like three hands in his face, and then there you go, it's going in. I'm like, okay, well, there's not so many guys in the NBA who can get away with that, but he is definitely like one of them. So watching him in this game going against what has been like a very active and strong defense, like working against them was just it was a very highly entertaining game. And he ended up being huge for this team in the fourth quarter when it was like he went out, and that's when the Suns started like taking control of the game. And then Bi, even the announcers made note of it. They're like, they need to get Bi back in here because there's no one else getting a bucket for them when they need it. And then he kind of came in and played that Kevin Durant role, and which actually, well, I don't know, we'll get to that later. But like yeah, he played the bucket getter role there in the fourth quarter, and he came through for them huge to help them get this game.
Yeah. It's what I'll start is I think it was difficult to kind of project where both of these teams is going. We're start the season where both of these teams are going to end up. Obviously, the Suns with the Kevin Durant trade and with the Jalen Green acquisition, it was like, all right, like I think we were kind of confused on what their roster setup would look like, and then they drafted the rookie out of Duke, Malawak, and then like kind of like there was a whole Mark Williams situation. There was a lot of mess surrounding the Suns, and it was like, all right, like how you proceed as a team. And then on the other side, the Raptors, we were kind of looking at them and saying, well, like you're a solid team, but like where are the limitations to it? Like how far can this team get you? And I think we saw a lot of those things kind of fixed throughout the season and really kind of making statements about what type of teams both are. And I think the answer is very underrated. And I think it's funny that like they're both very underrated as teams, but they're also being led by very underrated stars. Like Devin Booker, his entire career, is easily one of the most underrated players every year. And it's funny how we say this every year, and he continues to still be very underrated at being able to get to his spots, being able to really lead the Suns for really however young he was when he first was drafted by them. And it's crazy to see him continue to stay there, continue to be a part of the Suns and what they're building. And then you look at the Raptors and you think about the Brandon Ingram acquisition last year, and it was like, all right, you got him. He didn't play much to close the regular season with all the injuries and just kind of like being cautious about it. And it was like, all right, like I think there were a lot of questions about what is his ceiling post all the injuries and post all the stuff in New Orleans. And it's really cool to see him being able to hoop continually at a high level. And then you add just the constant pressure all around from the Raptors defense, and I think the Raptors are a team that have found ways to constantly stay productive, find ways to find sustainable offense and push that off of or consistent defense, and then use that to transition to successful offense, and I think that's been their key to winning games this year. And that's like when you talk about Brandon Ingram in isolation, like that's a big part of that. And I think it's just really cool to see.
Yeah, they're yeah. It's funny though. The only thing that has been annoying me lately is their coach talking about like when they lose games. Sometimes he'll still bring up like, "Oh, we're still kind of like a building team." I'm like, "Are you like?" I feel like you're clearly a playoff team, and like you have like all the money and pieces invested. It's like I can understand you saying like, "Oh, we're not fully there yet," I guess, but like to say that we're still a building team when you're fighting for like you're not even going to be like no one thinks you're going to be in the play-in tournament. Like you're clearly going to be in the playoffs. So it's like Yeah, that part started to annoy me. Where like, because they lost a game like a couple of days later, or something like that, and the coach was like, "Oh, we're still building." I'm like, "Building?" I was like, "What are we talking about? Like, you're a month away from like a playoff series. What are like?" So I don't know. That was the only thing that's annoyed with them lately. But it's still a good coach. Don't get me wrong. I still love the coach.
Yeah. And my final, we talked last week about Dylan Brooks's I guess we'll call it his burn book, where he had all the different players, and they talk about the quotes about the top 100 list and everyone who was better than him and what he had to say about it. And I think it's funny that on that list, like there were a couple few people that he respected. It was like, oh, that's my dog, like he's a bucket getter. And one of those players was Brandon Ingram, and I think that says a lot about the talent that Brandon Ingram has. Where it's like even Dylan Brooks, a top tier hater, was like, yeah, no, he can hoop. Like he's that's the type of basketball I like to see. He plays the way that I want. Which I don't know if like once again like it's one of those things where it's like if Dylan Brooks is talking positive about you, you go, oh, that means something, and if he's not, you go, all right, that doesn't mean anything. Like you kind of can brush that off under the rug and say it doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%. Like it just it was wild to watch the Raptors like stall out in the fourth, and then they're like, "All right, Bi, get in here, save us." And then he did exactly that. All right, next game. What do you got?
All right, my next game I want to talk about is Denver versus San Antonio. This was also Thursday night, alongside the OKC game, and it was definitely interesting. The Spurs came into this game without Wemby, which instantly was like, all right, like big test of just the youth and depth of this team, and especially you think about the Western Conference, you think about the depth that you're going to need to play teams like OKC and Houston, and I think we saw a big test and a lot of pressure on a Stephon Castle and a De'Aaron Fox to see how they could manage this load without Wimby. And I think especially in the case of Stephon Castle, like he's a dog, and we knew this, and that's where I'll kind of start this. It's just because he finished 30 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, all without the absence of Wimby. We talked about his 3-point shooting. He was 4 from 8 from three. Him like that is like above average numbers considering the way he's been shooting the ball and he's been constantly trying to. He just dipped on me. I guess he didn't like my Stephon Castle rant. Anyway, I'll I'll kind of just continue this by saying I think it's really cool to see the development of a player like Stephon Castle, where he is shooting the ball really well. And I think that's the big thing, especially when you think about his biggest knock up to this point in his career is a 3-point shooting. He isn't a very good 3-point shooter, and it's cool to see that take a next step in the evolution of his game because he's great on the defensive end, and literally is why he was drafted from UConn. You had the defense, you had the playmaking as a guard. And to be fair, you don't really need to playmake too well when you have a 7'6" Wimby out there, so they can literally just get creative where he can throw the ball up, and that's considered playmaking when you have Wimby. But I think also making players like De'Aaron Fox better, making players like Julian Champagne better, even a player like Devin Vassell, I think he makes better. Devin Vassell also hit 4 threes in this game as well. So yes, the Spurs didn't have Wimby, and we saw that especially on the defensive end. They allowed 136 points to Denver, but they were still able to offensively keep up, and I think that was the biggest thing I saw from this game, where you have De'Aaron Fox, still go 27 points, 10 for 19 shooting, 4 for 10 from three, excuse me, with 9 assists. Like that to me, yes, they were out without Wemby. They were going up against an MVP candidate in Jokic and a perennial MVP candidate in Jokic, but they were still able to consistently, be step hand in hand with the Nuggets, and keeping things competitive. It's crazy. Full on left me.
Yeah, dude. I was like, I don't know. My internet was being weird in the first place, and then all of a sudden it was like everything just like cut. I was like, oh, okay. My fault though. I don't know what happened there.
I literally was like, oh, I guess he didn't like my Stefan Castle praise. I was
No, I was actually about to agree with you too, because like, hey, he's been balling, but like, yeah. Do I seem is my camera and all that like moving really slow, like laggy for you too?
it is now, yeah.
Yeah, it keeps doing. I don't know what, like, why my internet is like fucked today. I don't know, I'm just kind of hoping it corrects itself, but it hasn't been. Um, trying to fix this. We just might have too much going on in the background. I don't know. Hopefully that's better. All right, you ready to start
Yeah,
back up again? Or are we still
yeah, let's
recording?
go.
Or
Yeah,
okay,
I didn't stop.
all right. So
So
we'll probably have to just cut around that a bit.
exactly.
But all right. Okay. Sorry. Back to it. You were saying about
Yeah.
Stefan Castle.
I'll start the whole point over.
Okay.
All right, so the next game I want to talk about is Denver versus San Antonio. I think it was really cool to see a couple of things in this game, but mostly all, and I'll start with this one. Stephon Castle, 30 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, triple double in this game. Without Wimby, I think was the biggest thing. It was going to be a test of San Antonio's depth and really the test of their young players. You have a lot of young players, and I think especially like, and I meant to mention this last week, like Carter Bryant was also hooping for them, in a couple like hooping in a couple games for them, and it was really cool to see a player like that, especially when you consider what San Antonio's bread and butter has been for decades. Has been a defensive identity, and I think Carter Bryant really adds to that. And of course, when you have 7'4" Wimby, you can defense is your identity, defense is your team because you have Wimby. But I think it's really cool to see not just players like Carter Bryant, but Stephon Castle also add to that and be impactful in the defensive end. But it was really going to be a test like for the defense in the when you're playing against Jokic, is always a test for your defense. And I think that would be the one thing that I say you like. Speaking to San Antonio, they failed at. Denver scored 136 points, and you let Jokic and Jamal Murray just kind of run through you.
Yeah.
Like Jamal Murray, 39 points. Jokic 31. You let Spencer Jones hit 19. Cam Johnson had a good Cam Johnson had a good game, 15 points.
No, that should be noted because he has not been what they expected him to be.
I'm starting to question if that says more about San Antonio's defense without Wimby, or if it's Cam Johnson starting to hit his stride. And I think it's a combination of both, but I'm leaning more towards the Wimby impact.
Yeah.
And I think like it really is we talked about this, but when Wimby isn't on the court, it's kind of like surviving offensively without Jokic on the court for Denver, where it's like you're wondering a lot of where the turnovers, even if it's not directly from Wimby where he's getting blocks or steals, are coming from, because you have to constantly adjust and there's literally a clip going around now of like Darius Garland running, like trying to run around Wimby. And you have to think about stuff like that. Like Wimby can go and like he's chasing, a Darius Garland, like a faster player around the court. And you have to say like, well, I can't even make that pass because Wimby is so long, he's so fast, and you have to account for him. You have to fully adjust your offense. And I think that's the big thing, that when you look at like a team like Denver and you're going up against them, when you don't have a Wimby there, it kind of disrupts your entire like defensive identity, because you don't have that literally your building block. Like Wimby is like I think the equivalent of like you're like Mike linebacker for the Spurs, where it's like you're literally like he's literally dictating your entire defense. I was gonna say a safety like a Kyle Hamilton, where he does everything. Either
Maybe
one.
like Luke Kuechly, like something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think for like you think about like the athletic and like the all around aspect, I think Kyle Hamilton works.
Mm.
Also, they're both just really young dogs. But yeah, like I mentioned, Jamal Murray 39 points, Jokic 31, 20, and 12. Like it's crazy that like you hear these type of stats, and you're like, oh, that's insane. Anyway, and you say anyway because that's like a typical Jokic stat line. Like it's like oh, like 31, 20, 12. Whew. All right, yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, he's doing that on a casual note. But yeah, like I said, like Denver's biggest weakness in this game was clearly not having Wimby on the defensive end, because they kept up with them offensively. Like, this was a 136, 131 loss. Like two teams to hit 130 in a game. Like clearly the offenses are moving. But I think San Antonio easily could have, won this game if Wimby is on the court and he's impacting these defensively, and he's able to disrupt a couple of these shots. Because that's all it would take to win this.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the defense in this because that was one of the reasons I wanted to watch this game. I was like, I said I hoped Wimby and Aaron Gordon were both playing because I wanted to see what the reactions were for both teams with those guys on the court. And then both of those guys, this was one of the games I was talking about where both of them were out for injury management. I was like, damn it, man. Like, especially the Aaron Gordon piece. That was like what I really wanted to see. Like, how are they going to like guard him and like what was Wemby going to be doing when you would have to deal with both him and Jokic? And then, yeah, it just, we didn't get to see that. But you're right. Like, Stephon Castle, like stepping up like that was awesome to see. And he's been, like, his passing in general, like, I'm going to be talking about a Spurs game next after this too, and it's like his passing in general, his playmaking has like definitely taken a step up. Like we know what he can do athletically, but then like his creative, like dude, was it against the Clippers where he had like the behind the back where he was his back was to the basket, he did a behind the back and then like 180. It was he's been putting out some crazy moves out there recently, so he's been really impressive. And then yeah, Carter Bryant, his defense specifically has been like I think what they have coveted, and like especially when you can put him out there with a Wemby. But yeah, they clearly did miss him and the aspect that he brings because, and I was thinking about this too with Wemby, both on offense and defense. It is crazy that it's like if he's on offense and he's getting guarded by someone like a big, he can turn into a guard. Like he can play like a guard and get by that big. But then if you put a small guy on him, he can play like a big and get his back to the basket and seal down. And so it's like the versatility he shows on both ends is like it's insane. And then so of course you're gonna miss that without him. But like you said, like for them to still be able to put up 131 against a Denver defense that I've been pretty harsh on, like it is still like very good. And then yeah, Denver, like good on them where it's like it it's like well, it's one of those things where it's like impressive, but it's also worrying that you needed that much from Jokic to be like, hey, like carry us basically. And it's like I don't know, man. I really do think I am starting to worry more about Denver. Like I know things change in the playoffs, and like playing against Jokic like 7 games in a row is like one of the toughest things you can do in basketball. But I like what we thought was going to be more of like a strength for them going into the season with like their depth. It has helped them, but not as much as I would thought it would because of injuries and then just players not playing like Cam Johnson, like just not being what they thought they were going to be. So that's now become sort of like a weak point for them that they've had to figure out. And then with the injuries that they've had too to certain players, it's been tough for them, but yeah, I'm a little less confident in them as we go forward.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll use to kind of disagree with you,
Hmm.
is the fact that they like Denver came back in this game.
Yeah,
They were down a lot, and were able to come back, especially in that first half. And I think that says a lot about this team. Like the fact that they were able to excuse me, string together stops, but then offensively, kind of go on be the dominant offensive team that we believe that they can be. And I think like that means a lot when it comes to playoff time. But at the same time, you're doing it against a very young team without their young star. So I do look at this and say like, yes, it's a win for Denver, and you showed a lot of resiliency coming back and winning this game. With that being said, you still shouldn't have been in this position in the first place.
yeah, yes, exactly. That's where I'm at with it. But like I said, and I do think Aaron Gordon, like we talked about this last time, like he is such an important piece for this team, and I think if he's back playing consistently and healthy, I do think that does make a big difference for them. So we'll see. His I think they're missing him more than they've missed any other player this year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's continue to talk with the Spurs real quick because I had them against the Hornets, which ended up being also a very. This game was wild in the sense that like there was once we got to like the end of the first half, there was never a moment where I was like, okay, like San Antonio seemed to pretty much like have this game like handled, but it was still very like entertaining, especially in that first half because it's probably the fastest game I watched this last week in terms of just the pace that they were playing at. Like it felt like, especially the Hornets, man. Like I was paying attention to the shot clock after the first few minutes because I was like, they're just getting these shots up like insanely fast. where it was like, I mean, the whole game really, they were just spamming high screens and taking that three immediately. It was basically just like they were so scared to drive and go anywhere near Wemby, so they were just chucking up like an insane amount of threes in the beginning of the game, which I don't blame them. And it was like, especially when you with the way that team's been playing lately with Khan and Lamelo and Brandon Miller, like these guys can all shoot and fill it up. But it just got to a point where it was like, all right, you got to find something else to do here because like San Antonio was just able to react to it, and Wemby was insane in this game. Like Diabate got the first bucket for Charlotte in this by doing like a quick little fake, and he got Wemby off his feet. And then after that, he only got one more bucket for the rest of the game because and it was just Wemby blocking him every single time. And then Bridges would try to go in. Nope, you're not gonna be able to do anything. Lamelo, nope, you're not gonna be able to do anything. It was like they were all scared to go anywhere near the paint for good reason. And that like we were talking about the Nuggets where like they play with like the Spurs without him. Where you see a team like this that has had such an insane offense, especially this calendar year, and the Hornets we're talking about them lately as being this like team that's been rising up the standings as we get closer to playoffs and surging. Then they run into a team like this, and you're like, there's such a clear difference where it's like, yeah, you can have a good offense, but then you run into a team like this that plays disciplined defense that will force you to play only one style, which it's also kind of funny because it's like the Spurs were like, okay, we know you love to shoot threes, but that's all you're going to do this game. Like, that's all that we're going to allow you to do. And like I said, the Hornets were spamming those high screens. It was like anytime you were near the logo, you were getting hit by a Hornets player, and then it was like pull up three right at the top. But like if you're not hitting all those and you're not able to get anything else down low, it was just it's nothing much was really happening for the Hornets this game after that. But it was still highly entertaining. I mean, Conka Nipple was nuts at that time of this game. Like it felt like he almost like solely brought them back. Lamelo, I mean, he wasn't able to get anything going, man. Like he wasn't playing poorly, and he watching him be active on defense, where like he was chasing down guys and getting steals in transition. I think that was really fun to watch, and it's nice to see the Hornets finally kind of like taking that side of the ball serious. But it just wasn't enough against a team like the Spurs.
Yeah, you mentioned 3-point shooting. Charlotte shot 54 threes to San Antonio's 33. There were 6 players that shot 7 or more threes for Charlotte. That is insane.
It was, dude. It was like watching it like live. I was like, "What the hell is happening?" Like that's all they're doing. Like when I tell you they were spamming the high screens, that literally it was like every single possession. It was like I was watching Hornets players sprint to get in front of the ball handler just to be like, "I'll help, I'll help, I'll help." Like, and it was, and sometimes it was good, but I think it was like and this is what you see. And there was a moment like that with the Spurs in this game where they would do a high screen like that with Wemby, but then he would do like a ghost or a slip screen, go out to the wing, get the ball, and then like he would drive. Like there was more to it than just a screen. With the Hornets, it was here's your high screen, I got that guy, and now I'm just kind of gonna like back off a little bit. There wasn't as much off ball movement that you would have needed to help out because they were all just looking to shoot. Whereas like the Spurs on the other end were like, okay, we're gonna do this ghost screen, we're gonna slip this area, and then Cornette and Wemby were on the floor at the same time, and Wemby is setting up lobs to Cornette off of that ghost screen, and I'm like, what the hell? And then you're watching the Hornets who are just like bombs away, like well, screw it, we're just gonna try to shoot our way out of this.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, like I said, the threes were nuts, but it was highly entertaining at the very least. And I don't know, the Hornets are interesting. My one of my biggest take, I haven't even gone through my notes. I'm just going off pure memory right now. But yeah, fast paced game, threes were flying early. Oh yeah, this is why Grant Williams, brother. I felt so bad for him in this game because he basically had to play a lot of center because Diabate was going against Wemby and got in foul trouble early. So Grant Williams was out there playing the 5 at times, and dude, it was bad. It was tough to watch. Like I've legit felt bad for him. But yeah, the high screens I was talking about. We already talked about Castle. Brandon Miller couldn't get anything going in this game, which I think if you take away his drives, like this is just kind of what it's going to be. Like he can be a good shooter, but there was one point in this game where I was like, are they going to take him out? Because it felt like he missed like 5 threes in a row at one point, and like even like in between breaks, you saw him taking like practice threes and nothing. I was like, okay, like I think this is not his day. Um, but yeah, one of my biggest things, 2 more things on this game. I need Charlotte in the playoffs for 2 reasons. One, they're extremely fun to watch, and I think they could just be like a fun like first round. So even if they don't win, they're just gonna be like a very entertaining and tough out in the first round. And 2, Eric Collins, uh, dude, this was even like a local broadcast. Like they had him on like the prime time. I think this was on Amazon. He was so good. First of all, staying unbiased like that and not like overreacting like he normally would when he's watching the Hornets. But he had one call that I specifically wrote down to like recall here. Wemby goes in, he's got his back to the basket, and he's working his way towards the paint. And then he does like a spin move, almost like a dream shake on the defender. And when he spins around, Eric Collins yells "French Revolution." I was like, God, he's so good. He's so good, man. And he had like 5 lines like in this game I could have written down. But I was like, anytime that man is calling a game, I'm like, this is he gets it, man. Like it's fun, but also just highly informed, and it's just like all off the cuff. Like, it's so good.
French Revolution is a
That's
crazy
good.
thing, but like it genuinely like it is fun to see like I think and this is something I think about like occasionally like literally running a radio station and you know working with people who are broadcasting, especially the sports people, and you know they're doing like you know commentating and doing calls, and it's like all right like what do you expect from us? And I'm like, don't like you know, don't think you're trying to be like an Eric Collins because it's like that stuff comes naturally.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing when you think about this is how like how fun it is to like you know when you're in that position to come up with these things on the moment, and be generally you know like not forcing it. I think that's like a big thing is that you're trying to force these things, and it's like for him you could tell it's just like first thing that comes to mind, and it's a banger. And I think like some people look at that and say, "Oh, that's corny," and it's like, well, like the way he says it and the moment like makes it less corny.
Yeah. And French Revolution is just great. Like I don't care. Like lines like that are just awesome. But all right, next game. Is that are we done with the Spurs talk by the way? I feel like we had
Yeah,
okay, cool.
we've done enough Spurs talk. Trust me,
Yeah, I know. We've been slowly killing you with this. Good. Thanks for hanging in there. But all right, next game.
I'll make you feel better by saying that Shea and the Thunder just won 113-108 over the Magic. Shea dropped 40. So
Jeez.
I feel a little bit better. Paolo apparently also had another good game. 32, 10, and 5.
Yeah, so I was slightly because I watched the not to go off topic here, but like
Yeah.
I just watched the Heat and Magic game that happened, and they were two teams that were kind of surging because the Heat ended their win streak. I think it was. Was that? Oh no, it was the Hawks that did that. But I was watching the Heat and Magic game that happened before that, and it is the the Magic are getting to an interesting decision here, where it's like they have all these players signed, but Wagner and Paolo both play better when the other is out. It feels like. And this is what's happening right now. Paolo's been playing a lot better this last week. Well, who hasn't been playing? Franz Wagner. So it is. I don't know because I think we both expected a lot more from the Magic this season, especially when they brought over Bane, and then we seen there's like the emergence of Anthony Black and how good he has been for the team when he's been out there, and then they've got some other players out there like playing very well, but I just yeah, I don't know, man. The Paolo Banchero, I've been a big defender of his in the past, but it's fun to see him play well lately. But it is annoying that like when they have their full team out there, it seems like they both have to like take a step back, and neither of them are able to play to the best of their ability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand that, and there's two sides to this where it's like I'm in the point now where I do think not that you have to make a decision, but I think you are leaning more towards hey like, and I think this is the thought process of the Magic is look, Paolo is your guy. Literally, you spent the number one draft pick on him. Like I think it would be difficult to justify getting rid of him. And when you also consider the injury history of Franz Wagner, you look at that and say, well, I think it'd be literally just a safer choice to go with Paolo, not just because you spent the number one overall pick on him, but also because you want someone who's available on the court. Like Franz Wagner's played 28 games this year to Paolo's 57, and if you're like moving forward and you're like, hey, like yes, Paolo hasn't been, I think like. And to literally quote the words of Dylan Brooks when he was talking about the top 100 list, he was like, should be better. And I think many people looked at him as like, oh, he could be this like I'm going to say LeBron-like player, and I don't mean LeBron in the sense of he's in GOAT conversations, but I mean the play style.
Yeah.
And I think because he hasn't reached that yet, like people are waiting to see like what that looks like. And like to be fair, like, and this is I constantly say like trust the development of players. He's 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like he clearly like you don't need him to go out there and score 30 a night at this point in his career. Like next season, I think like. I think you're looking at him and say, hey, now would be a good time to make that jump. But even then, like, he'll be 24. Like I'm not looking at that and saying like I'm worried about Paolo Banchero's development by any means because I think he's right where he needs to be, and that's continuing to grow, continuing to get better, and continuing to draw around a Magic team that clearly supports him. When you bring in players like Jalen, not Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bain, and you're surrounding him with stars by spending high draft picks or multiple draft picks on a player like that, it shows your support in a player like Powell that you're willing to surround him with players that will make him better. And I think that's going to make him once again like make him better in the long run because the players around him are clearly going to be suited to his needs and what he wants. And I think part of that is considering, hey, like it may be the moves to just have to move Franz and acquire pieces, especially depth pieces, to really kind of lead your bench unit almost. Potentially, like if Desmond Bain was worth 3 picks, I wonder what Franz Wagner would be worth when you consider potentially moving him. But I think there's a lot of like potentially key like role players that they could use for like an off the scoring bench type of role, who can really just lead the second unit.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing with him is like he just needs to develop that 3 point shot some more and takes some notes from a former Magic player in Aaron Gordon on that side. But all right, let's talk about the game you were going to talk about.
Yeah, my final game, and I'll keep it quick because you talked about it a little bit in the intro. It's Philly Brooklyn, and it was solely to like get a pulse check on like how bad things are like how bad is the sky falling. And I'll say that the sky isn't entirely falling. And yes, I know that's a low bar. You beat the Magic, but I think
The Nets.
to me, oh my fault. Yeah, the
Yeah, I was
Nets.
like, we didn't beat the Magic, trust me.
We were just talking about the Magic. You beat the Nets, and I think people will look at that and say, "Good for you!" Like you beat a game that you were very, very clearly supposed to win.
Where Michael Porter didn't
With
even
that
play.
Yes. With that being said, you still won the game, and I look at this and say, like, to me, it is a start, and I think that is the biggest thing with the Sixers is that there's going to constantly be these discussions of like looking deeper into the like the end of the regular season. What does it look like when Maxey comes back? What is it like when Paul George comes back? Even sooner than that. What does it look like when Embiid? Like, what does Embiid look like? I was gonna say when he comes back. We don't know. Like, just Embiid in general.
Yeah.
And I think so many times the conversation from Philly sports media is constantly, what is that going to look like when they come back? What is it going to look like? And to me, it should be a conversation of what are we looking at now? What are we seeing? I don't know, a lot of pressure is going to be on VJ Edgecombe, but what are you going to see from a lot of your bench players who are now taking these big roles and stepping into their starting lineup, really leading these key and playing key rotational minutes for you? I think to me, that matters a lot more than thinking about what is it going to look like when Maxey comes back from his injury? What is it going to look like when Embiid is playing for your team and relatively healthy? Because to me, and I'll use OKC as a reference, when Shea was out, when Chet was out, when Isaiah Hardenstein, damn near all their starting unit was out. We saw a lot of minutes from a Jalen Williams. We saw a lot of minutes from an Isaiah Joe, and Aaron Wiggins. And I think now we're starting to see those minutes pay off because you're seeing them play crucial rotational minutes off the bench where Jalen Williams can come in and give you an amazing 15-minute performance where he does everything for you in that span, where he's looking like mini Jokic out there. You have Isaiah Joe being that sharpshooter opposed to Jared McCain, where you have multiple options to go off the bench if one's cold. And I think that says a lot about OKC's depth. And I think, yes, the Sixers literally, especially the last two players I mentioned, literally got rid of them. But with that being said, like obviously they're not going to get to an OKC level depth where you can pluck somebody off your bench and fit them into their starting lineup. But I think it's important to consider that regardless, this is going to be beneficial to get these players minutes, and no matter who the opponent is, they're getting opportunities to shine and excel in these roles. You mentioned Quentin Grimes, like trying to get back into that rhythm. 28 points, career high. Like I think, or not career high, season high. Excuse me. And I think like that to me says a lot about like him getting comfortable at the right moments. Like what does it look like for his development the rest of the season? While like you consider while the players are out, like what does this look like for him? What do we see just from VJ Edgecombe as he continues to excel in this like in quotations number one option? Like I'm really interested to see how like those two players I mentioned, but also like a Justin Edwards will fit into this like this situation of like you're playing these starting minutes, you're getting big moments and big opportunities, but like you think about like not looking deeper into the horizon at the returning stars, like just play now, focus on the games at hand, and then when it's crazy to say when they get there, they get there. But I think that to me should be the focus of the Sixers.
I agree, and I've been pretty harsh on them and like some of the players that they've had to play because I'm still bitter about the Jared McCain trade in a bit, where it's like, hey, like we talked about, like if Maxey gets hurt, like who are your guards outside of like these other guys, and then I'm worried about like Kyle Lowry getting minutes, but like we already talked about Beauchamp and some other stuff, and it's yeah, Justin Edwards, first of all, like awesome, like the local guy, like in his second year here, like being like this and still being able to step up at times when at times Nick Nurse hasn't even been playing him, even though it's like he was in the lineup as like one of the first guys off the bench at the beginning of the season, and I think he's even started for us at times. And then you get to a point where it's like he's not even playing. So for him to step up when people are injured and be able to hit threes like this, which we know he can do, like we've seen him do this before, that's been nice. It's more been his defense at times I've been worried about, but yeah, we know Grimes can be that lead scorer. And then with VJ, man, my thing with VJ, man, is first of all, he's trying to kill everybody. Like he is trying to get a poster every game, which I appreciate. Like I love it. Like he's oof, man, especially against Portland. I thought Avdia was gonna get like put in the ground, but yeah, in the Brooklyn, like all these games, because I'm kind of bunching up all these like basically what I'm calling the non-maxi games together lately, but my thing with Quentin Grimes, he's proven he can be a lead scorer, but like he also has to take like an insane amount of shots to get like it almost feels like he has to warm up throughout the game. But and it also kind of makes it feel like sometimes where it's like he probably would be better suited to like to start than he would be off the bench. Not that he's bad off the bench, but I don't know. That's a thought for later on. But VJ Edgecombe, just getting back to that, getting him into the clutch moments, whether it's you need him to score, get a rebound, like make the right play, like whatever it is, even on defense, like if you could just get that man to a close game in clutch moments, he's gonna come through in some way or fashion. And it's been awesome to see, and it's also awesome to see him like fully like talk to the media afterwards, talking about like, hey, like this game you had a career high in rebounds, or this game you were passing the ball really well, and it's like, yeah, my coach told me I need to work on that. Like I should be getting rebounds because I can jump at this really high, and it's like, yeah, I need to be focused more, getting my other teammates involved, and not always like. But then at the same time, you have Nick Nurse saying like after the games, he's like, yeah, I want him to get like 20 shots a game while we're in this like position of our season, and it's like, okay, like this is very much a learn on the fly moment for the young guys on the Sixers, and it has been cool to see them kind of step up. And like guys like Barlow especially have been like very impressive to me. Dude, he had a move against Portland where it was it was a transition bucket. He gets the ball and he's driving like from half court. And there's like one guy in front of him, and he decides to do like a spin move, but like towards the basket without losing stride. And he's able to like. I was like, okay, like all right, if I'm getting this from the role players, I'm gonna be a bit happier when like these guys come back. And by reports, like Maxey will be back within like a week or two. Um, Paul George will be back soon enough, and they're saying like when he comes back, there's no restrictions because it's not like he was injured. It's just like you're full go when you get back. Like you got suspended because of whatever, and then Embiid should be back, but within like a week at least as well. So it's like part of me is like happy about that, where it's like okay, like the final 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season, we'll get to see everybody fully in there, and hopefully the depth will be figured out a little bit more in the rotations. I am still a little bit worried about that, but we'll see when we get there. And this is maybe like a coping kind of thing I've had too with this break from Maxi. But part of me has also been like, you know what? Like he needed a break. Like he's been leading the league in minutes for most of the season. So maybe there's like his pinky getting hurt is almost like a blessing in disguise where it's like, it sucks that the Sixers are going to be worse off without him during this stretch, obviously. But at the same time, like his legs probably did really need the rest.
Yeah, when you and I think that's another thing is that I think we were talking about it very early in the season. Like he's playing a lot of minutes. Are you sure about this? And I think, like you mentioned, it really is almost a blessing in disguise. Where you look at this and say, like, I mean, like it's not the worst injury he could have had. It was something small. Hopefully, it doesn't affect any of his shooting motions, and you're looking at that and saying that's the biggest thing that you're concerned about. Like I look at that as a positive, opposed to like some deep tissue injury that you're like I don't know, it's getting tough, and like he's gonna have to manage it throughout the playoffs. Like yes, there's gonna be some management with the hand, but I think like you said, like it really is going to be a lot more beneficial to have to recover from that than suffer a late injury where it's like once again affecting some type of muscle, some type of tissue where it'll really inhabit his movement, especially because he really is such a movement based player. He's so shifty. He's great at getting to his spots, and I think that's such a crucial part of what makes him excel as a player. So it's really good to see that hopefully won't be affected too much by an injury like this. So I like all in all, I think like once again like focus on the games at hand for the Sixers, but at the same time, I do think like when it comes to at least looking ahead and saying, all right, what's next? You're going to have these players come back at the right time to hopefully get into rhythm for the playoffs or play in if you're able to hopefully avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, look, they still have a chance at the playoffs. Like I said, they're only a game and a half behind. Let's see, because 1 through 4 is basically set. Like I'm pretty sure 1 through 4 is going to stay the same in some form or fashion. But then after that, it's like 5 through 9. Basically, you're kind of. And I mean, like I'm not gonna. I feel like Charlotte's probably like firmly at 10 at this point, just because of the slow start they had to the season. But like the Sixers, the Hawks, the Heat, the Raptors, and the Magic are all within like a game or a game and a half of each other here for this final stretch. So like if the Sixers can get healthier by like next week and you get more of these guys back, I could see them getting back into that like fifth or sixth seed potentially here. We'll see what happens with the Magic after they want a win streak there, but then I don't know. But so like and I think the Sixers have all the incentive in the world like to not tank and to actually still try to make these playoffs. And I think that's what the players are like they've talked about all year. That's what they're pushing for. They want to win. They want to do like have these moments. And plus, I think with a guy going back to VJ, where like you want to get that rookie that playoff experience like as early as possible, so that like we already see what he's like in clutch minutes. Let me see what he's like in like real clutch minutes in a playoff series and get him that experience. So. I've been very down on the Sixers. I still don't have a lot of faith in them, and I like I've said, a lot of this hasn't been on the players in my estimation. Like it's a lot of it's been on the coach and up. Like I have not been that impressed with Nick Nurse this season, if I'm being honest. Like especially when you watch players that he was coaching go to other teams and play exceptionally well, and it's not like they're doing anything crazy for him. They're just like, oh, here's an off ball like screen for you, or a defense, or like a dribble handoff, which we've seen like the Sixers be able to do with other players, but then for some reason they couldn't do that for like a Jared McCain. But then he goes to it's just so stuff like that where it's like it's simple things that this team sometimes like doesn't draw out for their players, and it's like too much iso ball at times. But that's a whole other thing. I don't want to get too much onto the Sixers again, but yeah, I'm hoping that they get healthier here soon within the next week and they can make a push for like one of the fifth or sixth seeds.
Yeah.
All right. I have one more game to talk about, and then we can move on. And I'll make this one quick because it just happened last night, and it's one that's like already being talked about like an insane amount. And that was the Lakers and the Rockets game. Um, I mean, my biggest thing we kind of teased earlier was the Rockets. Man, it's the problem that we've talked about them even going into last year. It's when you get to the last minute of a close game, who is getting these buckets for you? And obviously that's why you get Kevin Durant. And we thought like this could be a good fix. I clearly think they're still missing Fred VanVleet. Like there's been times of the season where it's like, okay, maybe Reed Shepard and Thompson will be able to do enough for you. But then you get games like this where it's like Kevin Durant is getting doubled immediately when anytime he gets to like a half court set, and they don't know what to do. Everyone's just standing there and watching Kevin Durant with the ball. And Kevin Durant's also like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And part of that is coaching, right? Like, what is Ime Udoka doing in that sense? Like, how are you not coaching them? Like, hey, a double team happens. One of you needs to go here, or like just make yourself like flare out, like make yourself available. It was literally like Tari Eason would pass the ball to Kevin Durant at the top of the key, and then it's like a double comes, and they're all just like, they're just standing there watching Kevin Durant. I'm like, I understand he's Kevin Durant and I love watching him too, but you're on the court with him and you need to be moving. Like, set a screen for him. It's like, help him with this double, do something. And then Kevin Durant's like, he's also messed up. But like, if you're seeing that double come to you, get it to the open guy. Like, I don't understand why we're not passing the ball around more. It's just, it was tough to watch when the Lakers were like, who aren't even that good at defense, but they were putting in the effort in this game. They were diving, like LeBron's been diving on every loose ball this past week that's been going like his way.
Knee out in the
Yeah,
process.
and it's like you got a 41-year-old out there like diving on ball, and then like Austin Reeves is out there. Luka's like getting some steals, and Aiton, like as hard as we have been on him lately, like he has stepped up for the Lakers in these past couple like big games for them in clutch moments. I'm not saying he's like, oh, he's turned it around. It's more just like he's been able to take advantage of like a game like this where Şengün's not in. But I feel like I'm like trying not to give him too much credit, but like he has been good for them in these last couple of games. But like what I'm saying with like the Lakers, they're not. It's not like they're some like great defensive team, and you weren't even to get 100 points. Like you lost this game like this. Like it's the Rockets are starting to worry me, man. Like they really are. Like I didn't think they would miss Steven Adams this much. Like Steven Adams and Fred VanVleet are apparently cornerstone like lynch pieces for this fucking team. And it's so weird that they just fall apart like this off of a double team. Something every star and every team should know how to deal with. So that was really good. And then Luka's just, I mean, he's been on one. He had that 50 bomb recently. Even when he's inefficient, they had that overtime game recently where it's like, yeah, screw it. Like I'm just gonna make win us this game anyways. And then against the Rockets, he takes over again. He's on his thing where he's getting nearly triple double every game, 30 plus, and it's just, yeah. I just my biggest one with this one was like, why can't the Rockets handle double teams?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and we'll talk about me playing soccer, is they constantly teach like off ball movement and not ball watching, because there's a lot of like runs in soccer where like literally 10 people minus the goalkeeper. You there's all of you are field players. Even if you're a defensive player, you need to have the skill to potentially overlap. Like a winger, because it provides multiple scoring options and multiple threats to score. And I think like me as a soccer player who like now transitions to basketball. Like, I would say transitions. I've never played basketball, professionally. But like, in my spare time in rec games, like I understand the off ball movement. I think a lot more as a former soccer player, and I think like that's why we see players like Luca, like are so good at like I guess just like basketball, because I think like literally like foreign players, it's literally in the DNA. Like soccer is like their primary sport where they're from, and I think a lot of that is taught. And that's why we see like these European players come and they're so good at when it comes to I guess the teamwork almost aspect of basketball more than ISO scoring. I don't know why I say that about Luca, but he could do both. He's literally a freak. But all that to say
Freak,
is
yeah.
that I think you really do see that, and I like that was my biggest concern with the Rockets. It's like, all right, like if they take Kevin Durant out the game, this is literally any of the young stars' moments to step in. And I think once again, when you look at the development of like a team like San Antonio, is that when Wemby is out offensively, like we talk about Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox had a good game in that game as well. These young players are, well, I'll say young, De'Aaron Fox isn't young, but these players are able to step in and almost kind of fill the offensive void of a Wemby, excuse me. Obviously, you can't fill the defensive aspect, and I think that's naturally where they struggle. But when you look at the Rockets, nobody's taken that leap offensively where you can say, yes, go out there and be that number one option for us when Kevin Durant is struggling, when Kevin Durant isn't hitting that shot or he isn't on the court for us. And I think that like constantly will be the issue with this Rockets team, and especially come playoff time. Like, yes, defense will win you games, but offense and clutch shots win you games as well. And especially in a Western Conference where these games really matter, I think it's going to kind of hurt them when it comes to seeding. And when it comes to being in the playoffs and being in that playoff atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's moments where I'm like I'm down on both of these teams, where I'm like I don't have a lot of faith in them going. But then they have games like this where it's like it reminds you of like what the playoffs are kind of going to be like, where it's like when things are tight like this and in close game situations, and like the clutch moments, like you need a guy like Luca who can handle a blitz pretty. Like we've talked about him for years now, like even since he was a lot younger, where it's like when teams blitz him, he knows exactly what to do when he sees someone step like the second defender stepping towards him, like what to do with the ball and like how to move off of it and everything like that. But then you watch a guy like Kevin Durant, where you're like, how like what's going on here? And like that's where to me it's more is it does feel like more like the coaching. Like Kevin Durant's getting a lot of flack for this. Part of me wants to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, like there needs it's just weird. And then he talked about it after the game where he was like, oh, like maybe I need to do something. Like he's talking about like it was almost like he was saying like I need to be more of a role player. It's like what? Like how are we at that point with the Rockets where we're talking about Kevin Durant needs to take more of like a role player, but then who's taking over? Is it Reed Shepard? Like it's just I don't know, man. The Western Conference playoffs are going to be a lot of fun this year, I think. Where it was like last year, we were like, holy crap, like 70s teams are like insane. This year, where I'm like, four of the teams are insane. And then there's a bunch of teams where I'm like, they could pop off in a game, but we don't know. But I think it's going to be like chaotic in a very like disruptive kind of way.
Yeah.
All right. Were there any other games we need to talk about? All
No.
right. Let's move on to our previews now. I'll have you start with this one too. What do you got?
All right, I'll start, and it's perfect to start with this because I'm looking at the rematch of the Lakers and Houston.
Okay. I
They
think I have
play again.
two. I have at least one or two Rockets games too.
My goodness. They play again. Well, tomorrow as of this recording. So I'm really interested to see what that looks like. Obviously,
Hmm.
like how the Rockets have adjusted for the second game. obviously we mentioned the Lakers aspect of this and like Luca, really kind of being Luca, but I really want to see one like how the if any improvement is seen from the Lakers offense or no, excuse me Lakers defense,
Hmm.
and how that can improve, especially against a Houston team that like when you see when Kevin Durant is taking out the game or he's struggling shooting, this becomes I don't want to say a very one dimensional team, but a very like they struggle half court offense wise, and I really want to see what that looks like when it comes time for there to be a situation like once again against a top team in the Western Conference that you have to hit big shots in clutch moments.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I'm keeping a close eye on them as well because there's the rematch tomorrow, and then they play a back-to-back Friday and Saturday. They go Hawks and then Miami, and then those are two teams where like the Hawks I really want to see because I want to see how they defend the Hawks and how they could deal with a guy like Jalen Johnson just like killing you all game and Alexander Walker who just had like a 41-point game like against a Magic on Magic City night. They popped off. Which yeah, and then on Saturday they play Miami, and I want to see if Miami does their zone against Houston. Like that is the one specific thing. Like I'm watching that game to watch it, but like the one thing I want to look out for, and I'm like crossing my fingers, is like I want to see Miami do their zone, and I want to see how Houston handles it. Is that something like Kevin Durant can still just be like, oh, you're playing a zone against me, like I'm Kevin Durant, or is it just going to be like the whole team just kind of panics, they don't know how what to do with that because I think that'll be a weird indication going forward as well for them. But yeah, so geez, we might be watching three different Rockets games over this next week. We're gonna have a heavy on Rockets talk next week. Um, okay, and then I'll go to my next one real quick. On Saturday, I'll get my sicko one out of the way. I got Cleveland and New Orleans. This is more of like a guard on guard kind of like well it's vet versus rookie kind of thing where like I want to see how Derek Queen handles the bigs of Cleveland. I want to see how Jeremiah Fears go against like Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder and guys like that. Or like is Fears going to be on Harden at some point? Like I'm guessing it'll be more like an Herb Jones or Trey Murphy kind of thing. But like, yeah, I want to see how these teams kind of like attack each other and how the younger guys handle those situations. So and then plus I can't lie, man. Like New Orleans is frustrating because it's like I don't think they're trying to lose. Like I genuinely think they're a team that's trying to win. They're just like not good. And a lot of that is because of like their roster talent and like the young guys they have. But like genuinely, I enjoy watching the Pelicans. Like Sadiq Bey has been just one of my favorite players to watch in general. But like I can say that about a few players like when you look at different like in different contexts with like the Pelicans, where I'm like Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears have been some of my favorite rookies to watch. Trey Murphy is having like a very and Sadiq Bey are both having very underrated seasons. Zion has played more than 50 games. Like I think he's going to be close to like the 55, 60 game mark of the season, which I don't think enough people are talking about. But that's because the Pelicans have just sucked all season. So it's been kind of like tough on them, but at the same time, like it is cool to see a team where it's just like hey, look, we're just gonna go out there and play and try to develop these guys and set ourselves up. But like they're just not good. But they are an entertaining watch for me. So I want to see them against a competition like this.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got next?
All right. My next one. This typically would be sickle territory, but both of these teams we've already kind of talked about are different. And in a sense, in this game, Thursday game I want to look at is Orlando versus Charlotte. We mentioned Orlando a lot,
Yeah.
and they were on a 7-game win streak, and now they've lost back-to-back to OKC today and Atlanta before that. So I really want to see, like, one, how they're able to respond against a team like Charlotte, and especially defending the three. That is clearly going to be something that we potentially may see Charlotte do a lot of again, and I really want to see how they adjust to it, very simply, and what that looks like, because previous seasons defense has been their stalwart and how they lean on that. And I think we could see something again where they're able to do that. But Paolo as well, how consistent can he be with his offense, especially shot making and some of the not shot making, shot selection, I should say. Because there's times where you're like, I think there would have been a better look. And I think like I think sometimes the focus of like, hey, you're the number one option, you need to go out there and score. It feels like it weighs a bit too heavily on him, and he's like, I need to go out there and like if I don't get my shots up, like it's something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is like, I think a big part of his game. You mentioned the 3-point shooting. Yes, that's an aspect of it. I just want to see him like play. I don't say confidently, but like in rhythm. I think that makes sense. Like not forcing things, just taking the shots when they work, and becoming a lot more natural of a scorer. If that makes sense. Like you don't need to force shots. You just need to be like getting to your spots like confidently. And I know that's like easy for me to say as like well, I'm watching Shea like every day, but like I think it would be a big step of his game that I think makes him a lot more dangerous.
I like it. All right, I got one more game, and this is more of like I'm watching it to like pay attention to certain things, but this is more of just like a vibe check with these teams because I don't think none of them are gonna make the playoffs. But I got on Monday Golden State and Dallas. I just want to watch this game for more of like a catch up where it's like I haven't watched either team for a few weeks. So like I want to see what like how Cooper Flag's doing since he's been back from injury. I want to see Porzingis, he's been playing finally for the Warriors, things like that. I want to see if Pods continues to score on his own bucket, like just things like. And then of course, like anytime you get Clay playing against his former team, like maybe do something fun. Did you see Anthony Edwards talking crap to Steph when he went on his heater?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Steph,
Oh,
Steph is in a dark place right now. I feel like.
yeah. Speaking of that, there's been that clip going around of like him looking at Draymond. Draymond's giving this like speech, and like Steph is just like fully like looks like he's zoned out, just looking at him. And like I've been seeing the memes, and they're like Steph is entering his LeBron arc where he's like, I need to trade him, like,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
honestly, like with the way Draymond's been playing, like I can't sit there and say like I mean like it's wrong. I think like it'd be too difficult, like yeah, I think you have that personal connection with a player like that you won multiple championships with and have been through thick and thin. But I mean, I wouldn't be mad at him if he was like, "Yeah, I need Draymond out of here on the low, and I don't want nothing to do with this." Like just rubs his hand clean. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's, so we have it's like Le GM. What would you call Steph as a GM? Is there a nickname for him?
it had to be something chef related, right?
Ooh, yeah, yeah. There's a
Like what? Like I'm
got to
gonna
put more
this.
thought into this. Yeah, I'm like
I think I got one. And you got to bear with me on this. I'm gonna say the garbage disposal. Just yeah, the garbage disposal. Because I think like that's what like you like. I think a chef will like use that the most. Once again, I'm pulling threads here.
hmm,
But I think it'd be fun to be like, oh, the garbage disposal, and like trash players. It's where he throws them. That would be my vote for a pick.
okay,
But I'll transition to I have two final
okay.
games. Minnesota and Boston this Sunday. Two top teams, both in their conferences.
Ant's out though. That's the part that sucks about it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
a test. I would have thought him had a great game against OKC. And that was another one that I didn't mention,
Mm,
but it was a really close game that Denver played really well against OKC, and Shea just did enough to get the 20 points at the end on Ant. What a tough shot.
oh yeah.
But either way, I think we saw a lot of OKC's depth in that game where he was struggling scoring. We saw Jared McCain come off the bench and take over in the fourth quarter. We saw, big moments from Isaiah Joe. Like, it was really cool to see OKC's depth really shine in that game. And also a bit of Denver's, but they didn't do as well when Ant also to the same level as Shea didn't play well. And didn't I mean that's Denver. Minnesota also adjusted around that, but it just wasn't enough in the end. And I think I want to see how they're able to fully adapt when it's like, all right, Ant had a bad game, but he was still on the court. He's still Anthony Edwards, and teams draw to him. What is it going to look like when Ant's not on the field, or not the field, not on the court at all, and you have to fully adjust? So I really want to see what an IO game looks like, even like a Bones Highland,
Yeah.
and like how he's able to continue to play at a good level. What is Julius Randle able to do in a position like this where it's like, all right, you have the entire keys to the kingdom, like for a game? Like I think it's going to be interesting, really to test Minnesota's depth more than anything in this game.
Yeah, the one thing I'll be looking for, like we talked about in the past, that like a lot of these other guards on the team like to play fast, but it's Anthony Edwards who's the one who usually doesn't like to play fast, even though he can, and he's talked about that. But so that's like when he's out, like does the pace change a lot with him out? Like is our Bones Highland, Desumu, DiVincenzo, guys like that just gonna be like running up and down the floor? That's kind of what I would look for with Ant out.
Yeah. And my final one, Of course, it's going to be OKC versus Philly.
I thought you were gonna
All
do
of
this, and I was just like,
listen. Once again, my girlfriend got me tickets, so I will be there. And one, there's a couple of things tied to
Jared
this.
McCain.
Jared McCain is returning. Do you think they give him a tribute video?
A true. That's a good question. You
Because
know he's gonna get a lot of cheers.
yes, when you think about this, he really only played half a season with them.
Hmm.
But this is a player that like was able to like I don't like and I don't want to speak for Philly fans like when he was first like drafted, but I think a lot of people are like, oh, like Philly's gonna eat him up like because of like all the TikTok stuff when he was coming out of college, the nails and stuff, and everyone was like, oh my god, like he's not gonna survive in Philly. Like, this was the worst option for him to go
Yeah,
to.
he's
So
not
like,
gonna survive in a town that has neighborhood and rainbow walks in their center city. Yeah, yeah, because a guy
yeah, I
painted his nails. Everyone's gonna like, "Whoa."
they were treating that man like he was going to Strawberry Mansion. If you know, the thing is full of strawberries. It's beautiful there, and I highly encourage you to visit.
Good deep
Um,
pull for everyone from Philly. Yeah, good.
but either way, I think when you consider all the talk about how he was heading into what it was like being drafted and heading into Philly, it was a lot of I don't know, and for him to leave as one of this like beloved players and only spent half a season there, I think it says a lot. At the same time, though, like it is like bordering on the line of like like what like
I think he'll
is it
get like when he comes in, the PA announcer will be more emphatic about it. There may be like a thank you Jared thing like on the jumbotron, but I don't know if he's gonna get like a full video. Like I said, the moment he steps on that court, Philly fans are gonna be like cheering and losing their minds for him, like praising him.
I hope he goes for 20.
You know what? I kind of hope he does too. I hope he has like one of his best games of the season against. I truly do. I like just in front of him, and I hope. My hope is that like we see a side of Jared McCain that we haven't seen before because this is a situation he's never been in before in his life. Like this is legit like revenge game territory here, and I hope he makes like Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey look bad. Like I truly do hope for that for him.
Yeah. And I'll have a front row seat to it live at the Xfinity Mobile Arena watching as Jeremy Kane makes his return. But that's not what I'm there for. What I'm really there for is Shea Gorgeous Alexander. Look,
Yeah.
he comes here. He comes here, and yes, I know OKC, but he comes here once a year alongside OKC to play a game in Philly, and it is the highlight of my year. And my girlfriend hates that I say that because, like, she's the other highlight of my year. Get some
You're
brownie
just
points
digging.
back.
You're just digging. You gotta
Had
move
to,
on.
had to
Move
get,
on.
had
Move
to
on.
get, had to get something back here. But like I love Shea. Literally since high school, I've been on the Shea bandwagon because I had nothing else to cling to when your team is reset by Damian Lillard. What do you have to cling to? I know you player you cling to just doesn't show up to games anymore. With that being said, though, it's been cool to see him develop into this player, and I actually just got his. I was finally able to win his. Win the raffle and get his shoes. So I look, I'm a big Shea fan. I'm just really excited to see him play, and hopefully he does play because last year was my first time actually seeing him play because the other two times he came, he was just hurt.
This man just
Um,
said, "Oh, my player shows up, yours does it," and then follows it up with, "Well,
all right, all
hopefully he
right, all right, all
plays."
right. Look, because anything can happen if I'm like, oh my god, I'm so excited to see Shea. He's gonna have a great
You're
game.
like a kid
They're
on
like, oh,
Christmas who's like, "Oh, I have to be
Shea.
good until December 24th, so I get my present."
And what's wrong with that? Okay, look. Once again, my girlfriend got me six because she knows how big of a Shea fan I am. Yeah, she's kind of begrudgingly become an OKC fan as well. But either way, I am a Shea fan first and foremost. And I was thinking this what do I do if like Shea like ever leaves? And I think you'd see me. I take a couple Popeyes biscuits to my room with no bev,
Oof.
and you wouldn't
No
see me.
honey?
No honey, nothing. Just Popeyes biscuits.
Two is
I
crazy.
think
One is like risky, two is like asking for it.
that's how much Shea means to me.
Would you follow Shea or would you stay with OKC?
I think I'd still stay with OKC. I
Mm.
was an OKC fan before Shea, and I think that stays. I was we had a group of kids come to the studio, and I was telling them about like my OKC allegiance, and I was like I was playing NBA 2K13, and I was like that's why I fell in love with OKC because they had Russ, KD, Jeremy Lamb. Ironically, is one of the reasons I'm a big OKC fan.
He was a fun role
Seems
player.
Yeah, Jeremy Lamb, Thabo Cephalosha. They have some fun players on that team, and that's why I love playing them. You know who I didn't mention? Kendrick Perkins, the real leader of that OKC team.
Do you think
All this
anybody was an OKC fan because of Kendrick Perkins?
no shot, no shot.
Like they came from Boston, they're like, "Oh man, I love Kendrick Perkins."
I'd wager there were more people who were like, "Oh my God, Serge Ibaka was my favorite
Oh,
player on the
dude,
OKC."
100%, 100%. Serge Ibaka was useful.
Yes. All this to say, I will be very excited Monday to see one Shea, but also two like genuinely the reception of like Jared McCain and what that looks like, and against a top team in OKC and how hopefully they'll dismantle Philly just this one time.
Well, I hope you have a great time, and I hope you cheer extra loud for Jared McCain for me.
I got you.
I appreciate you, and give a good middle finger or an FU to Nick Nurse while you're there. I'd really appreciate that. Okay. Well, let's move. You have no more games, right?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to the shoot around. Do you want to start or should I go?
I'll start.
Oh,
And we've kind of already talked about them, so I'll start with the Hawks. They are on the longest
yeah.
win streak in the NBA as of right now, 10-game win streak. And it's been Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and really all of the team. I mentioned those two in particular, but this Hawks team is fully rolling just because of the off like once again we preach the meta of the NBA and its depth. And the Hawks, ironically, since trading Trae Young, have like really started to find a rhythm with just their depth, but also their key players leading that. I think it's a combination of both that wins games, and I think the Hawks are finally doing both to the way that they would want, and that's the reason why they're on the win streak they are.
Yeah, and it's funny because I had Hawks as one of my things for shoot around too. It's like they're a team I want to watch a lot coming up. More of like how is Kuminga fitting in? Like, are they going to be able to continue this? Like, is this the Hawks team that we're going to see that goes into the playoffs? Are they going to fight their way out of the play-in tournament? Like that could be a lot of fun to watch. Because going into the season, we were very high on the Hawks because we were like, oh, Trae Young, Kristaps Porzingis, Jalen Johnson coming back. We thought this team was going to look completely different. But then Trae Young gets hurt, Kristaps barely plays. They both get traded away, and since then they've slowly been getting better to the point now where, like you said, like they have a 10-game win streak going on right now, and they're beating good teams while doing it too. Is it not like they're just beating up on the low of the low? Like they're killing everybody, and like whether it be like Jalen Johnson getting his triple doubles and leading the team, or Nickeil Alexander Walker like getting career highs and points and getting into it with the Magic, who get butthurt about it for some freaking reason. I was just like, why is JB Bickerstaff out there fighting with Nickeil Alexander Walker? I'm like, what? Anyways, it's like I love it, man. But yeah, the Hawks are a very fun team to watch right now. So I'm with you right there. Like I'm watching. How long can the streak go? Is this the team that we're actually going to see going to the playoffs, or is this more just like a blip? But yeah, I want to see how consistent they can keep up with this. I'm not expecting them to like win the rest of the games this season, but like, is this like more of an indication of what this team actually is and what they were supposed to be now that they've kind of like got their roster figured out?
Yeah, I think one of the looking at their schedule, the biggest and there's two big tests I think they face, and we'll have time to talk about the next one before, or the second one I'm going to say before we get to it. But they play Houston Friday, and I think like obviously we talk about all the issues Houston may have at the time. That's still a big test for the Hawks. I want to see how they play that. And then Detroit is Wednesday the 25th, and I think that's like they play Detroit and Boston back to back games on the 25th and the 27th. So those to me are like obviously you don't want to look ahead. You have Dallas, Houston, Golden State, and Memphis before them. I think they're 4 winnable games with the way they're playing right now. Those Detroit and Boston games I look at and I'm like, and that's I think where you're going to see the biggest test for this team and see what really they have against these top teams. Like they're the epitome of both a combination of you have skill power and Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren for the Detroit, and then Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum for the Celtics. Like they're the epitome of both having the star players, be the star players for you, and especially since Tatum's come back, getting in a rhythm, but also just having depth where you can take a guy like Peyton Pritchard from Boston, he can go off for you randomly, Derek White, and I think this is going to be really important for the Hawks to once again almost a measuring stick game, to like measuring stick games to look at and say, all right, like I think they like it'd be difficult to win both of those. Maybe like even one would be like even a split. I think they'd be happy with, but to at least like say, hey, we saw where we were at, and we're like we know where we need to go.
Yeah, it's funny if you look at the past couple of weeks, but basically the month of March. There's three Eastern play-in teams right now that are top five in offense, and it's Atlanta is number one, Miami is number two, and Charlotte is fifth. And that's actually lower for Charlotte than what they kind of have been for a lot of this calendar year. But like, it's it's funny. Like the moment the Sixers get injured, all this stuff happens. All these other Eastern playing teams want to start like having the best offenses in the league. But yeah, I mean Atlanta. And it's not even just their offense. They're number one in offense the past couple of weeks, but they're also fifth in defense. So it's like everything is kind of coming together for them, and it's been a weird, interesting season for them. And like it feels like they didn't actually get off to the start that they obviously they didn't get off the start that they would have liked. But since they've had to do this roster like mid season, like it's cool to see it like coming together for them.
Yeah.
All right, my next thing to talk about, I didn't mention this player specifically when talking about his team earlier because I wanted to get to him in this segment, but that is DeJounte Murray. We talked about Trae Young and Jason Tatum coming back, especially like Tatum coming back from the Achilles injury and everything like Trae Young making his debut for the Wizards. DeJounte Murray, who also had an Achilles injury, came back and has been playing for the Pelicans, the team that I was talking about earlier, for like the past since late February. So yeah, the past like 3-4 weeks. And dude, he's been so good, especially like as he's gotten like more into a rhythm here lately. He was just out of a game for like sickness or something like that. But dude, like the past two games he's played, he's got 27, 5, and 6, and then 35 points and 7 rebounds. The last game he played against Houston, by the way, and those last two games where he's had his best games against two really good defenses in Toronto and Houston. The one against Houston, he shot nearly 80% from the field that game with 35 points. I mean, he has truly come back and looked really, really good for this team. And so like that's been a lot of fun to watch. Whereas like I talked about, like the Pelicans they've been like the sneaky like they haven't been good, but they've been like kind of like a fun team to watch. But then they had DeJounte Murray, and all of a sudden it is kind of like I don't know, like he has an extra element to this team that they were definitely missing. Where it's like you have the scoring, but also the playmaking and the leadership that he can bring to your team as like one of the like more vets on the team. It's genuinely been fun to watch, and I think he should get more praise for coming back from injury like this. Where we've talked about the debuts of these other guys and other players being out for these injuries, but like DeJounte Murray coming back like this, and then also the fun interactions that he's had with Tyrese Halliburton, who was like shouting him out, just a really cool like basketball moment. But like I don't think it should be overlooked like how well he has been playing for this team and like what he could mean for this team going forward as they start looking towards the next season.
Yeah, obviously it's tough because he's on the Pelicans, and it's difficult to genuinely sit there and kind of like watch them.
Yeah.
With that being said, like it is impressive to see the way he's playing, and I think this once again is more. The Pelicans are in a phase where especially now, like looking forward to next season, it's like, all right, this is really going to be the year where I think they finally go through and I won't say clean house, but really make some tough decisions that they've probably been stalling for the past couple of seasons, especially when you look at a player like Zion and say, like, what is his future on this team? You look at it and say, hey, this is going to be the year, I think, where they finally go in and make some changes and say, he's going.
Yeah, if you're going to be bad with this roster anyways, like when you're trying to win, you may as well like
you want to go fully into the mission of say, hey, we're a I don't want to use the word tanking because that's like I think Adam Silver will find me and take me out. But they are fully going in a direction of we are going to be bad and we understand that we are bad for a reason, which is to improve eventually. And I think that is clearly going to be their goal. But why not have a guy like DeJounte Murray who can still be that that option for you, where he can lead your offense, or maybe if you get enough, maybe another young player in return. Like I think it's. We kind of, I don't say brushed over Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but like consider where he was last year.
yeah.
At the time where he was playing for the Timberwolves as like a great option off the bench and really being that great six-man option for them. Well, seventh man because Naz Reid is your sixth man. But it was really cool to see him, and we saw the potential of what he could be, and then to see where he is now in Atlanta, and he's being that number two guy to Jalen Johnson is really cool to see. And I think there's a couple of other players, barring something that we're going to talk about right after this, that like you look at and say, hey, this player could be great on a team. Like we talked about, like Usman Dang and getting the minutes that he was at with Milwaukee, and he was just like sitting away on the OKC bench. So there's tons of players that I think can make that next step to be these stars that are like, or not even stars, but like valuable options for the rotation when they're given the opportunity. And I think it'll be really cool to see how the Pelicans attack that and who they're able to pair with DeJounte Murray.
Can I interest them in a Paul George for Trey Murphy?
I mean, if they're fully sound, like, do you think Trey Murphy is a guy that like is a part of their future? Like, I think he is, but like if when you're looking at like what the like still maintaining some of your roster that you think you can move forward with, but also being realistic about your timeline, is he one of those guys to keep?
I mean, I would love to keep Trey Murphy on any team I'm running, but yeah, I think the timeline part is where it's tough, where it's like because of Jeremiah Fears and Derek Quinn, how well they've played. I think they're your pieces going forward that you build around, and then maybe you keep a guy like DeJounte. But like a Trey Murphy can get a lot back for a guy like Trey Murphy. And if you're going to be moving on from your team, and it's like you could trade, like they have a lot of guys they could trade and get like a lot back for when it becomes to like I'm sure there's a team out there that would take a flyer on Zion, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, like all those guys like could be very valuable trade pieces for them. But it's also contract stuff, like you said. So it gets messy, but that's something fun for us to look at this offseason, honestly. Okay. Are we both looking to talk about the same thing next?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
So it was announced from the NBA that they are officially going to be voting on expansion here coming up. Was it the summer that they're voting on it? And they're specifically voting on it for Seattle and Vegas, the teams we've talked about. Anytime we bring this up, we always there's always like the rumors about it, but like Adam Silver would be like kind of like, ooh, I don't know. It could be like it was always going to be Seattle and Vegas, but that also most likely means that one of those Western Conference teams, more likely Memphis and Minnesota, one of those will have to go to the Eastern Conference as well. But either way, this was announced, and then of course this comes up where it's like, okay, they're going to vote on it, which means they would have to do an expansion draft here within like I think they were aiming for like 2028 season, that's sooner than I thought it would be if I'm being honest, like which is really cool. First, I'm very excited at Seattle because I expect this vote to go through. If I'm being honest, do you feel the
Yeah.
same way?
I think like it's I don't say it's almost a consensus, but it does feel like it is legitimately like it like, and at least I'm reading the ESPN article now about it where they break down like just the NBA expansion and everything you should know about it. And it once again they mentioned there like this would be a situation where 2028 2029 season they'd be looking to do this. And apparently for the past 5 years now it's been floating around. But like, there's a lot of like, I think legitimately like economic issues with that, where you're like, hey, like we need to consider like the mass impacts this is going to have, ironically, on the economy. And I'm not even gonna get into that because I don't like, I'm a journalist. I don't care about numbers. But unless they're stats of a
When it's
player.
convenient. When it's convenient.
Yeah, when it's convenient to me. But I genuinely like think it is going to be something that we see get approved.
I yeah, and which good. The Vegas thing is, I don't know. I feel like they just get it because of the name and like, but Vegas, I don't know. Sometimes I don't consider it the best sports town, but hey,
I agree. I think when you think of Vegas, like it is exactly what you like from what you hear is exactly what you I think you get. Where it's like, oh, you're getting a city that like is very much like I don't say based on consumerism, but just literally based on like the like every stereotype you hear about Vegas it is what I think we see. And I think it's kind of almost frustrating to see a lot of like teams get it like like sports towns get kind of snubbed over for Vegas, where you have like the Raiders, for example, where it's like, all right, that's cool. Like they don't get a lot of people out there, one because Vegas sucks, like the Raiders suck, but also like genuinely like there's so many different attractions in Vegas and so many different things where people are visiting, and they're not saying like, oh, I can't wait to go to a Raiders game. It's like, oh, you want to go to the Vegas staples, you want to hit the important things.
I will
um,
say, I think
yeah,
basketball, like a sport like that, and hockey have better chances in a town like that than like football does, or like even baseball, because I know they're getting the baseball team over there too. Because I think it's almost like the LA thing where it's like basketball in LA is like they have the fans, like the hometown fans are there, like they're gonna be able to sell out crowds with like their fans. Whereas when you go to like a Rams or a Chargers game, it's like, do they ever have a home game? Like ever?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like the same thing where it's like basketball. Like I'll pull back on that a little bit. Where I do think they could have more success with that. Like, and it's not like the Aces don't sell out and do well there, but like I don't know. We'll see what happens with an NBA team there, but my worry with always like a town like Vegas is like, are you going to get more of like a tourist crowd or an actual like home team crowd?
And I think this my issue, and I think it's with the constant like ties to like sports betting. I think when
Yeah,
I think of Vegas, that's my biggest issue is that I think of like Vegas as a sports betting town, and I think adding an NBA team will only continue to like allow these conversations into the sport, because they're constantly being tied to everything, and I think that's more my frustration with this more than anything is that how much more of a grip does sports betting have on the NBA and really just like what we see moving forward. I think the like the opposition to that would be like, well, how much further can it get? And I think that's my concern is that we could sit here and say, well, I think it's at its worst, and they're like, well, we never truly know like what that looks like. There always could be something worse. But yeah, like I think either way, like I mentioned, I think the expansion is solely good for reasons where you have players like I mentioned like Van Dang who are sitting on the OKC bench and doing nothing, and it's like you're doing like, and especially with the promise of the G League now as well, where you see a player like Mac McClung is going off there and he can't find a spot on a team, and it's like really like none of you guys can like even remotely want to take a shot on this guy who like clearly is putting up numbers, and yes, like the G League doesn't always translate well to the NBA, but he has the some relative NBA success. He knows systems. He clearly is doing it at least a smaller scale. Like I think to me clearly is a player that should get an opportunity on another team, as a rotational piece, even not even as a like, hey, go out there and play 40 minutes a night for us, but go out there and play like 15 and do your thing, like as a scorer off the bench. And I think like it's difficult to see players like that get left in the G League and kind of right away where you have towns that can be expanded into. So I think that to me is like what I'm most excited for when I look at this expansion potentially is, hey, we're going to see players hopefully take these leaps because one, when you have like, yes, you can protect your players and we'll see like other players leave. That then opens up like, hey, like if OKC loses some of their players, like, hey, AJ Mitchell's gone. I could probably see something like that where it's like, hey, you protect Shea, J-Dub, Chet, Case and Wallace. You see AJ Mitchell hit another team just because of like, literally, I think he's the one player where it's like it'd be a really tough loss. He's a dog, and he has the potential to be a really good option for another team. He's only in his second year, so like you look at that and say, hey, AJ Mitchell's going. He gets to excel in another spot. All right, cool. What does Sam Presti do? He could finally use one of those other draft
yeah,
picks.
dude.
Another guy.
This has to be some of the it's simultaneously like a bittersweet moment for OKC when you think about expansion draft because of all the picks that you guys have like stocked up. But at the same time, like one of my questions for you is going to be like when they do this expansion draft, where because like the rumors are like it's not all fully fledged out yet, but like from how it's worked in the past and what everyone's like saying it's probably going to be like you protect those 8 players and like it depends on like expiring contracts and like that, who you can protect. But how many players from OKC get taken right away in the expansion draft?
If you guys want Lou Dort, he's available. Lou Dort is available.
I'm sitting thinking like a guy like McCain and like you said AJ and then Dort probably too, yeah. But then like even like, do you protect Case and Wallace like at that point too?
I think to me, obviously Shea, J Dub, Chet, and Case and Wallace, I think are the 4 like off the top of my head that I'm like, hey, by all means, you need to keep them. Like I think a player like Isaiah Hartenstein, you can say, hey, we valued your contributions. You're also getting older, and they also drafted Thomas O'Bara this last year in a draft. He's not gonna play the entire season with the season-ending injury. I really want to see what he looks like when he comes back because I think like once again you talk about the molding of these players and what they look like coming back from or not coming back from injuries, but yes, coming back from injuries, but also the Sam Presti system where it's like, all right, Isaiah Hartenstein, let's draft a potential replacement. Let's build him up. Let's give him time to develop. And I think I really want to see like what that looks like in the case of Sober, because I think he was pretty solid at Georgetown.
Hmm.
And then you look at a player like Brooks Barnhizer, who's gotten minutes for OKC. Like I think he very much is like that gritty, like almost Alex Caruso type of player that like OKC likes. So they're like once again they really do set themselves up for success where it's like you're able to put almost exact copies of players onto your team and say, hey, literally learn from him. That's who we want you to be, and they've done a good job at that. But the one thing, like another question I have about this is, they're two West Coast teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, they probably both get added to the Western Conference. Who goes over to the Eastern Conference?
So, like I said, I think it's either Memphis or Minnesota. I think it should be. I would hope it'd be Minnesota.
Yes.
I would hope it'd be.
For competition's sake, it makes sense to be Minnesota. Logical sense, it makes sense to be Memphis
Yeah.
location-wise.
Yeah.
And I think from an Adam Silver perspective, I think he looks at this and says, we need to have more competition in the East. Send Minnesota over there. Send Anthony Edwards over there.
Yeah. I think that just one of those two teams makes the most sense. But yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And it's hard to do, like, we're talking about, like, what players would you take? Like, if this happens, 2 or 3 years from now, then it is kind of hard to be like, okay, like we can look ahead and see that. But, like, a lot of the context is, like, who would you take now? And a lot of people are also, like, this is why I want to ask you, too. A lot of people seem to be against it because they don't think the NBA is good enough to add 2 more teams, which I completely disagree with. Are you with it? I mean, too?
Not just the NBA, but when you think about all the players that are playing overseas, like think about all the opportunity that they're going to get as well. I already mentioned the G League, so you're talking about not just the bench. Like obviously, look at OKC's bench, look at Boston's bench. I don't know, like Boston literally built their bench again, like out of thin air, this season. But when I look at stuff like that, I'm like, hey, like they're very clearly like built for this. And then also like not only does that we mentioned the aspect that'll have on like players getting to choose from like other players like Seattle and Vegas potentially getting to choose from these other teams benches and choose key players for them moving forward, but then all the influx players that will allow, not just to fill the remainder of the Seattle and Vegas team, but to also fill out teams that lose players and compensation picks. Like there's so many. Like there will be such a big change, like naturally with something like this, there's going to be a big change, but also just a big I think a like almost reset, like a soft reset of the NBA. Like, and I like to like think about that where it's like, all right, like you like we all play Madden and play 2K, and you're like, what if like there was an entire fantasy draft or start over? And I think that's almost what this feels like in a less extreme portion where it's like, all right, keep your stars, but now like have fun and like go out there and be and be creative. And I think we'll really see a lot of creative GMs, not just at Sam Presti, but let's see Daryl Morey in a situation like this where he has to adjust.
Let's not. Let's not.
He potentially gets a chance to reset. If a team is like really really adamant about a player like Justin Edwards, even I don't know. Like it's difficult to like we're predicting a lot of what the future will look like, but I think when you look at something like this, it's going to have such implications in the entire league. Even if you aren't potentially losing a player, like it'll impact a lot of just what that looks like. Even moving a team from the Western Conference to the East, like that is going to be a lot. It'd be funny if like we're talking about it'd be cool to see like Minnesota or like Memphis over there, and they send like New Orleans over to the Eastern Conference. Like that would be, I would be like the most like, oh man, like, thing ever, where it's like I get it logistically doesn't make the Eastern Conference any better. I think it actually makes it worse now. Like you took out a bottom feeder from the West and sent them over to the East. Like good luck competing with the Wizards and the Nets for the next 2 years. Like I think the Wizards will be better by then, but either way, I think the implications that this would have on the NBA are massive, and I think it like I literally like the idea of having almost a soft reset where it's like we get to see teams and GMs get really creative.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too that when we've seen expansion in other leagues like the WNBA or even hockey, where like those first years with the teams when they're active, like think about Vegas, like how their hockey team had the success they had, like the moment they got the Knights, and it's just I think it'll be exciting to see like the first year of those teams too, like as they start to build their legacy. Seattle a little bit different because they'll have their history back with them, but it'll be cool to see them resurge. Then I mean, Vegas is Vegas. I'm curious what Vegas's name is going to be because I feel like Seattle's obviously going to be the Supersonics. But like,
Yeah,
what is Vegas's name? I've seen like somebody like say like the Venom or like some other like weird names.
I actually, I kind of rock with the Venom.
I it sounds too that one's too childish, I guess for me. Like I don't know, but it's like it's
Oh,
Vegas.
now you're too mature for basketball. Oh, come on,
Well, no, it's more
like
just like Vegas because they're gonna do something like it's gonna be gambling related or like yeah something just random out of nowhere. Like they already have the
fraudulent
aces there, so
the dice.
yeah, the dice. Oh, good lord, that would be bad. I was like the dice or like I have no idea, but like it's all very interesting. I can't wait for it. And we're both so interested. We're actually we are planning on doing a mock expansion draft here. Obviously, I'm taking Seattle. You don't get to touch Seattle with your OKC fingers.
Okay,
So
so then you know what? I'll come up with my own like name options as well for Vegas and what that'll look like. And also another like final fact on like the competition. This also brings in more college players as
yeah,
well. Like I think that like there's literally so many different areas that you can draw from, that I think like it is ridiculously stupid to sit there and say, oh, there's not enough competition. Really? Like
there is.
I go at, like you get another college player, you get another G League player, you get another overseas player. There's so much potential.
Yeah, we talk on the show almost every week about like someone getting an opportunity to shine. Like you just mentioned Usman Dieng. Like he goes to another team and it's all of a sudden like, oh wait, he could start for these guys when he wasn't even getting minutes on OKC. So it's like, yeah, there is enough talent out there, and a lot of people are like, oh, but look at all these bad teams that are tanking. Like tanking doesn't like it's more complicated than that, right? It's not all black and white, but there is 100% enough talent in the NBA for them to expand, especially by the time you get to that point. And trust me, like once this gets voted on and most likely approved, that gives all these teams like a year and a half, 2 years to like figure out how they want to approach this. So you're going to see contracts like changed and dictated based on like okay when this because okay I want to protect this guy I need to put him on a contract that's not expiring so that I can keep them. So then it's like you're gonna see movement from the GMs. Like you said, it's gonna be fun to watch them get creative and try to figure this out, where it's like you don't it's not just the two expansion teams and your bench players. It's like every team is gonna have to like think about their future when it comes to the expansion draft and how they're gonna protect certain players and what their real plans are for going forward. So that you're right, that is going to be a really interesting part about it. But that's why I think it'll be fun for us. I want to do it like sometime next week if possible, like where we do like a mock expansion draft, give ourselves time to prepare for it. And Spot Rack, luckily, showed everyone that they have like a tool to like do the mock draft. So we'll be using that for it. And I think it could be a lot of fun, man. Like, of course, it's like that's one of the things we both love about basketball is like trying to build a team and all that. Like you said, like 2K, Madden, like all that stuff is always a lot of fun. It's like it's a good exercise. So looking forward to doing that.
One final thing to add before we close here. With their win over the Magic, OKC is officially the first team to clinch the playoffs. So they are now playoff bound. And you know what I smell? I smell a repeat. You know, like it's in the air, and it's filling my nose, and I smell that repeat. And you know what? I'm fully buying into it because I think this team is more than capable of doing it.
I just I'm happy for you. That's what I'm happy for you. Congratulations, man, and all your success. That's where we'll leave it. But I do think that team in San Antonio might be I that's all I'm really praying for this year right now. Like based on what we're seeing from the Western Conference, I need a San Antonio OKC conference playoffs.
I don't say I need it because
You're
I'm a
scared.
little scared. Yeah, I admit that I'm a little scared. You see a 7-4 Wemby and Stefan Castle's playing the way that he is. Yes, I absolutely am. With that being said, I think you have to encourage you have to not only encourage it but seek it. Like I think it's a big thing that we constantly hear NBA players talk about wanting to play the best and playing in these big moments. And a big part of that is not shying away from these things. When you go up against a team like San Antonio, even if you're losing, it's made them better this season. And I think yes, they have been able to get over a hump, but last year we saw the Knicks not even be able to beat any, or was it Knicks or Cavs that just really struggled against the top teams in the Eastern Conference, and then came. I think it was the Knicks,
Yeah, I
right?
think it was in yeah.
Yeah, they just couldn't beat Boston, couldn't beat Cleveland, and it was like, all right, like what's it going to be like when it comes to the playoffs, and then they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think it'll be interesting to see because playoff basketball is another reset, in a sense.
Yeah. Hey man, can't wait. I like we're like a month away from the playoffs, and I'm very excited. So excited to see this last month how the standings shake out, and we can start talking about matchups, like which we love to do here. But all right, anything else we need to talk about? All right.
Yep.
Well, like I said, we'll be back with some NFL content soon to wrap up and talk about all the NFL craziness with free agency that's been going on. And annoyingly, we're gonna have to talk about like the AJ Brown stuff. I'm so sick of hearing about whether he will or will not be traded. It's just so annoying.
We won't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we'll be talking about all that, and then we'll be doing our expansion draft show. So lots of content to come, but we're very excited to get it all done. Thank you everybody who's been listening and watching and following our channel. We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you again soon.